It's day 582. It's also December 8th, 2020, and we are in St. Joseph, Missouri. You ever wake up in the morning and ask yourself, what am I doing? And more importantly, why? Yeah, me too. Hi, my name's Craig, and this is my story. A story about life. Life out there. For visuals while listening, to watch the video versions of this podcast, or even just to say hey, check us out on our website at lifeoutthere.me. We covered some ground today. Around 300 miles or so out of Western, we'd find ourselves on the outskirts of St. Joseph. We could have pushed on a bit, but this temperamental Midwestern fall, the one that had lulled us into staying so long in Western, had suddenly taken on a more winter mood. Temps were dropping again, and with it, the threat of black ice throughout the area. And, knowing full well the hazards of black ice, we decided that good old St. Joe would be a great spot to pull off, plug in, get some sleep. But first up, a long walk with Dougie, followed by an evening of reading about this place called St. Joseph. We may not get to see much of it this trip, but it didn't take long to realize that we were sitting smack dab in the middle of a ton of history. The land that would become St. Joseph, well, it saw the stirrings of commerce as early as 1826, when the Black Snake Hills fur trading post was established by the French fur trader Joseph Robideau. He'd also become the town's namesake. And what began as a modest trading operation quickly grew into an empire that stretched all the way to the southern Rocky Mountains. The town itself remained relatively small until 1848, when gold was discovered in California. And this single event altered the course of westward expansion, accelerating migration and turning St. Joseph into a gateway to that brand new and unknown frontier. Hundreds of thousands of settlers arrived by steamboat, and the streets overflowed with covered wagons and oxen awaiting to be ferried across the Missouri River. The supplies purchased by immigrants provided the economic foundation for what would soon be a booming city, a city that would be incorporated in 1851. And industries followed: railroads, meatpacking plants, factories. And by the late 1800s, St. Joseph was no longer just another outpost along the Missouri. It had built up a wholesale trade industry larger than that of Kansas City and Omaha combined. In 1886, the Chicago Times declared St. Joseph a modern marvel. And the city also played a role in some of the most legendary chapters of the Old West. From 1860 to 1861, it served as an endpoint for the Pony Express, that daring mail service that bridged the gap between the Missouri River and the untamed frontier beyond. And anyone that loves a good outlaw story, well, they know this is the very town where Jesse James met his end in 1882, gunned down in his own home. His legacy lingers here, woven into the town's folklore and echoed in the whispers of history buffs and tourists alike. Wow, for a city of 75,000, St. Joseph carries a weight of history that far exceeds its size. Certainly worth a closer look, I thought. Maybe another time, minus winter and the backdrop of a pandemic. The rest of that night, the focus wouldn't be on history. It would be on reflection. Back in Western, I'd received that phone call that shifted our plans in an instant. Up until that call, the focus had been on moving south, outrunning winter, perhaps discovering it in a new place. We've already spent winters in Arizona and Georgia, and there's still so many places in between to explore. But when you hear the words, "We may not have until spring. If you want one last visit, you should probably come now." There was no hesitation. Spring and summer on Colorado's western slope, well, they'd become my favorite. But suddenly, the season didn't matter. It wasn't about timing or preference anymore. It was about presence. And so, we're about to experience Christmas and winter in Colorado. And lying awake there in St. Joseph, listening to the rain on the roof, the reflections deepened. How often, I wondered, do we move through life believing we're in control, only to have the universe step in and remind us otherwise? How often do we make plans, convinced we're steering the ship, only to have the tide shift beneath us? What forces, fate, timing, intuition, pull the strings of our choices, leading us down roads we never expected to travel? We like to believe that we're the architects of our own destiny, but time and again, we're reminded that we are merely participants in something greater. A conversation, a decision, a simple phone call. Any one of these can alter the trajectory of our lives in ways we never could have predicted. And so, as the cold Missouri night settled in around us, the questions lingered. Not just about where we're headed next, but about the unforeseen forces that guide us all, about the meaning of time, of place, the moments that shift our course and redefine our priorities. It wasn't just another stop on the road. It was a moment of reckoning, a reminder that control, in many ways, is an illusion, and that sometimes the best we can do is listen, adapt, follow where the journey leads. Or perhaps just make it simple and be where you want to be. The way I see it, if you don't like where you are, even if they're for a good reason, there's really only a couple of options, right? Maybe just decide that's where you want to be. Or maybe rethink why you're there. Is it for the right reason? Could it be as simple as changing either? Just pick one and make sure it's the right one for you. So, map says there's some 850 miles between where we are and where we're headed. It'll take a few days, I think. A few stops along the way. And I wonder what we'll learn there. This thing called life comes with a lot of rules. Maybe it's time to break a few. Because you can. No, seriously. You can.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.